Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, and as usual I start with a few announcements. So the first thing is we have a new weight loss program here, and a couple of things. First of all, there is nothing new in weight loss. Let me just say that for the record. Sometimes there are new ways of packaging up ideas and strategies that make information more accessible or usable to people, and I would say that is what's new about our weight loss program. So a couple of things. February 1st and February 6th, we are going to do free teleconference calls to give a sneak preview of what this is all about. It's free. All you have to do is either email me, pampopper@msn.com, or call our office, 614-841-7700. You have two choices of dates. We may do this again, I don't know, but at least two times, February 1st and February 6th. It's live, interactive. We'll send you a slide set that you can follow along and learn a little bit about what we're up to. If it interests you, fine. If not, that's okay too. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's time for Valentine's Day cookie boxes, which we do every year here at Wellness Forum Health. They are delicious and wonderful. I mean, chocolate, right? What's not to like about chocolate cookies and a beautiful Valentine's Day box? Same email, same phone number. You can call and order cookie boxes. And then Chef Del is filming video clips today, and he wanted to make very sure that you knew that his birthday is in the month of February 28th. And so we'll probably post things on Facebook. And by the way, he said you can send presents to our address on Wilson Bridge Road. So Chef Del's birthday on February 28th. All right, I want to talk about something. Now we have to get serious. Almost 32 million Americans have at least one implanted medical device, which can include things like artificial joints and stents and mesh and nerve stimulators, defibrillators, heart valves, birth control devices. The list goes on and on. Now, the average person, I think, would assume that these products are approved by the FDA and they have been proven to be safe and effective. The average person would be wrong about this. Now, just to give you a little background, the FDA didn't start regulating medical devices and implants until 1976, and at that time, all products that were on the market were grandfathered in and assumed to be safe without any testing whatsoever. Well, it seems to me that if the purpose of regulation, you identify a need for regulation because there's the potential to have products on the market that are not safe, that the beginning of regulation would include a review of the products already on the market. Well, that did not happen. Even worse, there are a couple of statutes implemented that contributed to the problem. Under Pre-Market Notification 510K, manufacturers are allowed to develop and sell almost any device without subjecting it to clinical trials as long as the manufacturer certifies that it is, quote, substantially equivalent to a product already on the market. Substantially equivalent seems like a not very specific term, and allowing the manufacturer to do the certifying seems like it's not a very good regulatory practice. Well, that's not all. Another exemption allows the medical device companies to avoid testing by claiming that they made just a tiny little minor change to a device that's already on the market. This exemption was a result of a law passed by Congress called the Medical Device User Fee and Modernization Act, which established the regulatory standard, I'm going to give you a quote, as, quote, the least burdensome approach in all areas of medical device regulation. In other words, Congress passed a law saying we want regulation to be the least burdensome we can possibly make it for the people who make devices. This means that the FDA doesn't require any documentation pertaining to how most devices are made, any post-approval research, and has very limited authority to rescind the clearance even if products are proven to be unsafe or ineffective. This law had another little gem in it too, which is it provided for the device and implant makers to pay user fees to the FDA, just like the drug companies do, to have their products reviewed. The law creates the same conflict of interest that plagues drug regulation. The FDA collects hundreds of millions of dollars annually from manufacturers, making it almost impossible for any reasonable person to argue that this doesn't create an insurmountable conflict of interest. All of this has worked very well for the device makers, actually not so well for consumers. A U.S. Court of Appeals decision in 1995 stated that, quote, the 510K process is focused on equivalence, not safety, and the question of whether a device has been deemed safe and effective cannot be resolved by looking at the 510K process. More than 3 out of 4 high-risk recalls during one 5-year period were approved through the 510K process, and FDA data show that high-risk and recalled devices have often been used, often by tens of millions of Americans, before any action is taken at all. In 2007, Medtronic was forced to recall the lead wires in its defibrillator product because they fractured and misfired, hurting patients and even killing a few. The wires were classified as a minor change to the product, thus exempting it from any type of safety or review process. The change, in fact, was not minor, however. The new wires were thinner and more prone to break. Over 268,000 defective wires were implanted in patients by the time the recall was ordered. While many patients decided to have the wires removed, the removal process is not risk-free and caused major complications and harms to people who underwent the procedure. The FDA's tendency to favor manufacturers over the interests of public safety are evident when it bothers to demand that a device be tested in clinical trials. One example, Cybertronics makes a device designed to help epileptics that stimulates the vagus nerve. During the approval process, one FDA advisor expressed some concern about the high death rate for patients who had the device implanted. You would think that that would cause some concern. The FDA ignored the warning and allowed the device to be approved conditionally, which meant that Cybertronics would have to conduct post-approval safety studies. There was no requirement that patients who were being recruited for these safety studies be told that there had been deaths in patients who had been involved in the initial clinical trials. I would think that that would be a required disclosure. My gosh, I'd want to know about that as part of deciding whether or not I would want to be in such a safety study. Cybertronics completed the 5 required post-market studies, but didn't include data for deaths during any of the trials. The FDA's response to this? It didn't require these data and only asked Cybertronics to, quote, characterize the deaths. I've thought about this a whole lot. I have no idea how one characterizes deaths without listing them and quantifying them. Even the recall process is highly flawed. According to the FDA's website, I went to look at it. This is a quote. It says this on the website. In most cases, a company, meaning a manufacturer, distributor, or other responsible party, recalls a medical device on its own voluntarily. According to the site, the manufacturers are so diligent that, quote, in practice, the FDA has rarely needed to require a medical device recall. That's comforting. I'd like for the IRS to operate this way. In other words, we could all file our tax returns and notify the IRS at any time we thought we might have underpaid our taxes. The IRS could post on its website that it rarely needs to audit tax returns because patriotic Americans are willing to amend their own tax returns and pay more taxes without any intervention from the IRS. If only, right? Well, this is just one more appalling set of circumstances in a medical system that is not surprisingly the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. The medical consumer should be armed with information in order to protect himself. All right, well, that's all for today. I will be back to you on Thursday with more news. And in the meantime, please pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it.